Hello, everyone. It is that time of year where we talk about the best and our favorite movies from the past year. But of course, I'm not alone. I'm joined by the amazing Nick Iricchio. How are you, my friend?
Good. Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. It's great to be back. As you can
Indeed.
see, I just cut to our new little wide that's going to be prevalent on the new Roundtable episodes, and I can happily report that the Roundtable is coming back in roughly 2 weeks. You'll see. You'll see more announcements from that coming soon. Very exciting. We're not going to be diving into all the movie news stories we missed in 24 because that would take literal years. However, we are going to dive into news stories and have lots of fun and introduce a lot of cool new things on the channel that we're very, very excited about. But that's not why we're here right now. That's not why we're here today. We're here today to talk about our top 10 best movies of 2024, Nicholas.
Oh, yeah.
And briefly, I want to say, in terms of 2024 movies, it wasn't an insanely great year, but it wasn't an insanely awful year. I think there were so many movies that I thought were good, but I only had a handful of like, oh, these are my favorites, you know? Like
Yeah.
there were a ton that were like, oh, this is a solid like 3 star, 3.5 star movie. But there were only like I only gave out 2 5 stars this year. And
As did I. And I think for the same movies.
they might be, and I'm usually pretty not. I wouldn't say I'm liberal with giving out 5 stars, but normally I give more than two.
Hmm.
Normally, so was surprised by that. But
A lot of
hey,
4 stars looking back on my list. Like a lot of
same,
3.5 and 4. Not really a lot of
S-
4.5s.
same. No, I'm with you. I'm with
Yeah.
you. And let's dive into it. Let's kind of get into our list before we give our top 10,
Yeah.
though. I know that we both have a couple honorable mentions. Do you want to give yours first?
Yeah, of course. Now these like honorable mentions, we're doing a top 10. I think Dalton, what did your tally come out for the year?
My
For
tally,
total watched. Yeah. Like how
oh,
many
100,
how many new releases?
110.
110. I am a little bit behind, but I'm hovering right around 90.
Ooh, hell yeah, dude. Nice.
So we decided to cut it down to a top 10. I have about 5 honorable mentions. These are not necessarily like 11 through 15. These are
Okay.
just ones that I felt the need compelled to mention.
Of course.
So starting off the top of mind is Hundreds of Beavers. I just wanted to shout that out. It is a comedic feat. It is entertaining. It goes through some highs, through lows, but in terms of just creativity and innovation, especially with a small budget, I felt like it deserved the recognition. Probably some of the hardest I've laughed this year in a movie. Followed up by another one, which is The Beekeeper. And I am only shouting this one
Good for
out.
you.
I
Good
am
for you
only
for putting that on your list.
and do you know why? Because we that was the first movie I think I watched this year. It was released January 12th, and it was my number one movie until Dune Part 2 came out in March. It had a solid 2-month run where I saw a good amount of we go like every Thursday.
Yeah.
So there was like a 10 movie run where it was like wasn't better than The Beekeeper. And I felt the need for it to be dethroned by Dune Part 2. I felt like it needed recognition. Um Another one I have is The Substance. That one actually is in that 11 to 15 range. I really enjoyed that movie. It has its flaws, but overall, I was overly entertained by it. Bonkers third act goes up there with Malignant and the likes of batshit crazy third acts that come out of nowhere. I have The Last Showgirl, which was Sophia, no, Gia
Oh, okay.
Coppola's. Is it Gia? Might have
I,
been
I believe I believe it's Gia Coppola.
one of the Coppolas, but it was a movie that I you know resonated with me, not from a personal standpoint, but just from an emotional standpoint. I really dug the movie. I think Pamela Anderson. I would love to see get a nomination for lead actress, so I hope it kind of goes that direction. But check that out if you haven't yet. And the last one is Your Monster, which stars Melissa Barrera, so we love to support her. And she gives probably my favorite performance of hers. It's a movie that kind of blends the horror and comedy line very, very well. It's a rom com with a giant monster that lives in your closet. So what's not to like?
Listen, solid honorable mentions. I didn't see two
Yeah.
of them. I never saw Your Monster, and I never saw Last Showgirl. And those were both movies that were on my list. And speaking of that, it's a good thing to bring up. There are movies that I didn't see. I saw 110, but like I didn't see Dee Dee, which I heard was fantastic. I didn't see September 5, which I heard was fantastic. I didn't see Flow, which I've heard was good. You know, I so some movies are gonna be missing because I haven't seen them. I also didn't get to see All We Imagine Is Light, which I really tried to get in before the end of the year, and I just couldn't. But I'm going to
Yeah,
dive
I
into
haven't seen
my...
Nosferatu yet.
Oh, true. That's very
Yeah.
true. Speaking of Nosferatu, I'm going to dive into some of my honorable mentions now, and one of them is Nosferatu.
Ooh.
I thought that the film was exceptionally well crafted, beautiful to look at, and I mean, Robert Eggers is one of the best filmmakers working today, and he crafted a hell of a movie. I do think that the film has some minor pacing issues, and I think it has some tonal shifts that didn't quite work for me, and I think the story did eventually feel kind of stale when you realize what was happening, but it is by no means me saying I dislike the movie. Hell, I saw 110 movies and it's in my top 15. It's a great movie, it just didn't quite make the top 10. Another one I have on here is Deadpool and Wolverine, which, I'm burning both sides of film Twitter right now, putting these movies in the same category. But also an honorable mention of mine, I had a lot of fun with the movie. It was really exciting. As a comic book fan, I loved what they did. But more importantly, as a movie fan, I like the journey that they went on with the Deadpool character, with the new Wolverine character, played by the old Wolverine Hugh Jackman. And I thought that the story not falling into MCU traps of, like, how is Deadpool going to fit in the MCU, but just being worried about telling its own story was really nice to see. And so Deadpool is also my honorable mention. Another honorable mention is Late Night with the Devil. I love this movie.
I didn't get to see that one.
Dude, you gotta put it high on your list. I love it. And it's, speaking of well made, especially for an insanely low budget. I think it was made for just like less than $10 million. I want to say it was in the like single millions digits. And has David Dastmalchian as the lead, who does an amazing job. He's an amazing actor. And just watching this late night show from hell just play out in real time with some cheats of like behind the scenes footage capturing extra things. But it's also a horror movie that has stuff that when you watch it more than once, you catch things like in mirrors and to the side, and you're like, oh shit, I didn't even see that the first time. So I thoroughly loved Late Night with the Devil, made my honorable mention list. These next two honorable mentions were so close to getting into the top 10 because a lot of, like, for example, all the movies I just said all have the same ranking and grade for me. And even it bleeds into the top 10 a little bit. So it was hard to kind of get these 10. But these next two, I made several versions of my top 10 list, and these two at one point were in them, and then just ultimately decided to get them at 11 and 12. One of them being the Super Slash Man Christopher Reeve documentary, which was so beautifully well made. And some of you see, like, I might be seeing biased here. Taking my bias out of it, it is a beautifully made documentary. It is a wonderful film. The heart and the passion of that man and his family, it was so heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time. And seeing that in a theater with all kinds of people, and especially, like, normally when you go to movies, the handicap rows are pretty empty. Packed. All for people ready to watch and support a movie about Christopher Reeve. And it was a very beautiful movie, very wonderful to see. Absolute travesty it's not on the short list for best documentary this year at the Academy Awards. And my last honorable mention, and this one, again, really close to being in the top 10, just like the documentary, was Anora. I thought that Anora is a wonderful film. It gets a lot of criticism for the first half being slow. I think the first half is very necessary for the second half to work. What I really liked about it is that it's not really being marketed as a comedy. This movie is fucking hilarious. It's a hilarious movie. And the second half of the movie and the journey that the Annie character goes on is wonderful. And, the end, it has a very haunting final scene that I thought really kind of put a bow on the movie. And I'm glad that Yuri Borisov, who plays a supporting role in the movie, he's starting to creep up there in awards conversations along with Mikey Madison, who for sure will get Oscar nominated. But he's also starting to sneak up in there. And I'm glad he did, because he gave a subtle performance, but a very important one that really helped the movie work. So those were my honorable mentions. And, now we're going to get into the shit, Nicholas. The top 10 movies. By the way, making these lists is very difficult, because when I made my initial list of, like, here's every movie I think it just deserves to be talked about, it was 36. And I'm like, no one cares about a top 36. So I did make a top 25, which will be on my Letterboxd, which you can find the link to my Letterboxd in the description below if you want to see my full top 25 list. But video purposes, we love a 10. We love a solid 10. 10 movies is great. And Nicholas, I'm going to go first with my number 10, if you don't mind.
Hit me with it.
And the reason why I'm going first is because you mentioned it as one of your honorable mentions, and that number 10 is The Substance.
Mhm.
I love this movie. I thought Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley absolutely crushed their roles. I thought that Dennis Quaid did an amazing job as just this sleazy side character. And not only that, but just the story that this movie's telling and just the depth that it had with its themes, just both societally and personally, the pressure that society puts on women, the pressure women put on themselves, just that being told through almost a satirical body horror movie was really interesting. It's shot wonderfully. The set design is immaculate. It's edited very well. When I was watching the movie, it was actually, I was watching it like this is like a top 3 movie for me. And then you have the last 20 minutes or so, which, while they work as part of the satire that the movie does have,
Mhm.
to me, it just went a little bit over the top to where I was like, all right, this was a top 3 movie for me. Now it's a little bit lower. But if the biggest criticism I give your movie is that, oh, the end took it from a top 3 to still a top 10, you made a fucking good movie. Like, Coralie, I believe that's the first name of the director, did a fantastic job. And it's starting to creep up there in awards conversation as well, and I hope it gets in there. I hope it does. That would be really, really cool to see. But you'd mentioned it as your honorable mention, so I wanted to go ahead and talk about my number 10 being
Yeah.
The Substance. Nicholas?
It was so
What?
funny about that movie too, because you're watching it, and I'm just happy to see that it is an awards contender. Because I think we saw it separately, and both of us were like, "Man, that third act may have ruined the shot of it getting any recognition." So
Yeah.
it is good to see that it's creeping up in there in the conversation.
I'm glad. I'm really glad as well.
Mhm.
But hit me with your number 10, dude. What do you got?
My number 10 is Monkey Man, Dev Patel's feature debut.
Okay. Okay.
This is one I haven't really seen it in a lot of people's top tens. I think the movie does come with a number of flaws, it being someone's directorial debut, but just the something that I think resonates very easily through the screen in a movie is the passion of a filmmaker. And for me, it bled through the screen on Monkey Man, and I think it just has is something that has stuck with me throughout the year. Especially we work on short films together and everything, and just seeing that
Hmm.
passion bleed through, it just is something that has stuck with me. And that came out early in the year. I don't know, something I
Yeah.
couldn't get over.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's totally fair. You won't find Monkey Man on my personal list, but if you follow that link to that top 25, you may or may not see it crept up in there. It is a very good movie, and for all the reasons that you said.
Mhm.
Moving on to number 9, so I'm going to go ahead and give my number 9.
Yeah.
Uh, my number 9 movie was Sing Sing.
Mhm.
I thought that this film was exceptionally well made, very down to earth, very, almost day in the life type of movie. But for those of you that don't know, it's takes place in a prison, and part of the prison reform that some of the prisoners have made is that they put on, theater and plays, and they kind of have this troupe that kind of works on these musicals and plays together. And the movie's led by Coleman Domingo, and gives an incredible performance. I hope he gets Oscar nominated. And essentially, the movie kind of follows the journey of this character not only trying to fight his appeal for the crime he may or may not have committed, but also just trying to go through, putting on a good show while also connecting with other prisoners. There's a particular prisoner who, I'm forgetting the actor's name, but he does an amazing job in the movie, who basically, Coleman Domingo kind of recognizes that, I could really help this person, and I think them joining this troupe could really be beneficial for them. And then as the movie goes, that person recognizing the same help is needed for Coleman Domingo, and them kind of helping each other throughout this movie. It was a very, very beautiful film, and I do think it gets slow in some parts, and I think that the second act, could have used some better pacing. But I mean, overall, it was a lovely film, and by the end of the movie, it has a satisfying conclusion that I was worried it wouldn't have. And again, love the performances, love the movie. You don't have to tell me where if it is, but is Sing Sing on your list?
It is on my list a little bit higher,
Ooh,
and the
okay.
other prisoner's name is Clarence Macklin.
Yes, excellent
Yeah.
job. Excellent job with
Fantastic.
him.
And something I'll go into it a little more depth on mine, but like a lot of that cast was former
That's true.
inmates who
Yes.
benefited from this program. Like I believe that Clarence Macklin was one of the like
Mhm.
original founders of it. And I think in the movie he's playing sort of like a younger version of himself,
Yeah, and
which is
I
really
think
cool.
I think a lot of the cast were current
Yeah.
inmates, a part of the program too, which is amazing. It was a
Mhm.
really wonderful movie. Hit me with your number 9.
My number 9 is Flow, the animated movie that came out this
Okay,
year.
yeah, one I didn't
I've
get to see.
slowly been seeing that creep into a lot of like front runners for best animated feature. I thought it was wonderfully animated. It's dialogue free because it focuses on these animals, but just this sort of, this tragedy strikes, and these animals, you see in the beginning just sort of going after each other, and circle of life type stuff. But just this beautiful story about humanity, if you want, with the animals just sort of as they work together to survive this new world, I thought was just beautifully done.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. I again, it's on my list to see. I'm hoping to at
Yeah.
least get it watched before the Oscars because it's looking pretty sure for a nomination on that front.
Mhm.
Um, that's awesome. My next movie is my number 8, and my number 8 film is Saturday Night.
Mhm.
Um, this movie has kind of fallen out of the awards conversation, unfortunately, to me, because again, it's one of my favorite movies of the year. And I've seen a lot of criticism of the movie, kind of saying that like they couldn't really connect with the cast members, that it didn't really dive emotionally into too much, and that there's no emotional core of the film. Great, that's your criticism. I personally completely disagree. I felt very emotionally connected, especially to the Lorne Michaels character, played by Gabriel LaBelle. I thought that the cast did an excellent job of just kind of portraying the real life people that they were
Mhm.
portraying. And even if you didn't know the people, I think the movie does a good job in its chaos, kind of touching on like what each person's thing is, like what the thing they want, desire, and at the end, how they all desire to just be a part of this show. And going back to what you'd mentioned earlier, just being someone who works on micro level stuff, not even a studio level, a company level, the stress and the last
Mhm.
minuteness of putting things together is perfectly personified in this movie. Just seeing the movie randomly cut to what time it is before, because it's the whole thing takes place 90 minutes before the show goes on.
Yeah.
And obviously not all of it's going to be 100% historically accurate. You're going to take liberties, but I thought Jason Reitman did a really great job. And I thought that the buildup of the film to having Lorne Michaels having to explain what the show is to somebody, I thought
Mhm.
that buildup was wonderful and that payoff was wonderful. And I'm not going to give any like huge spoilers away in case people haven't seen it, but when I'm going to paraphrase the line, but if I can get choked up at someone saying, "Can somebody just get another goddamn brick?" Like if that line can like really emotionally affect you, like that means you've made something very special. And when the movie was over, I immediately wanted to go home and put on the first episode of Saturday Night Live. Like that was just the first thing I wanted to do. But yeah, so Saturday Night is my number 8. Did that make its way onto your list?
It did. It is just slightly higher for me.
Okay, okay, hit me
Ooh,
with your number
my
8.
my number 8 is I Saw the TV Glow.
Okay, another one that I
Uh,
missed.
yeah, I would put that very high on the watch. It's a movie that came out earlier in the year, but man, it has just been like the social media realm just consistently, talked about. It is a movie that has a lot of very heavy, very rich themes. It has a haunting ending that is sort of really still stuck with me. But just like those thematic elements to the movie, it was one that it kind of took me a minute to kind of understand what they were going for. And then as soon as it hits, it's just like a gut punch when that sort of finally came to me. And I was like, oh, this is what the movie's about. Like just a beautiful, beautiful story, haunting, and just definitely check that out.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's very high on my list of
Yeah.
watches. Again, even at 110, I still miss great
Yeah.
ones, and it's
Miss the big
so
ones.
it's so
Yeah.
aggravating. It's
But
so
you got Night
aggravating.
Swim.
Hey, we got Night
You
Swim.
got Night
Jesus
Swim, that's
Christ.
all that matters.
Oh man, don't even remind me. Uh, my next film is my number 7, and my number 7 film is My Old Ass. I believe it's
Ooh.
directed by Megan Park, if I'm remembering correctly. And I've seen some discourse across the whole spectrum of this movie. I've seen some reviews and some people who absolutely hate this movie. I've seen some people say it's the best movie of the year. I've seen some people say like, oh, it's pretty good. To me, the movie's exceptional, and part of that is due to the amazing script and direction by Megan Park. I think that the coming of age journey that this tells is a very modernized coming of age that feels very natural and part of the story. And it also, I fell in love with the lead character, both versions of the lead character, and just the journey that they were going on. And yes, there's a very dumb thing of they do this drug and it magically connects them to their future and past self. Either that you're with it or you're not at that point. It's kind of like School of Rock, which I believe is a masterpiece, which is you have to believe that somehow that fake teacher would end up in that situation. And as long as you can accept that, you can accept the movie. And that's kind of where I'm at with this. The movie has a lot of, interestingly enough, funny world building of the future whenever they communicate with each other. But the movie also has a reveal that I kind of picked up on as it went along, but it still kind of got me at the end of it because it kind of sets you up to believe one thing and then it drops another version of that thing on you. And the performance by Aubrey Plaza in that reveal moment was so touching. Like, it almost moved me to tears. And the journey of self-discovery that this lead character goes on, kind of taking tropes of what a lot of coming-of-age movies do and putting them in a new light and kind of reversing that trope for a new modern audience, I thought was really interesting, really well done. And just, kind of like you with Monkey Man, there are some movies where you just watch it and you're just like, it charmed me. It hit me on every level. The passion came through the screen. This just worked in spades for me. And that's this movie for me. And speaking of Megan Park, I know that she used to be an actress. I don't know if she still acts, but she directed a movie a few years ago, called The Fallout with Jenna Ortega that was purchased at a festival and put on HBO Max. Now Max, fucking hate that stupid name. It's just called Max now. But that movie is also spectacular if anyone wants to check out that movie as well. I'm going to be following her career very closely. And in the words of Chancellor Palpatine, I will watch her career with great interest moving forward. So, yeah, that My Old Ass is the next one on there for me.
It did not crack my top 10. I think you talked about the spectrum. I think I'm in the, hey, that's pretty good category.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My number 7 is Saturday Night. So
hey, there you go.
Just one above you. I saw that very, very late. I think just like 2 weeks ago, maybe. And I am sad that I didn't get to experience it in theaters, but can't catch them all, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for all the reasons you said, just the stress, that ticking clock of like, oh my God, only 5 minutes has passed. This is insanity. To all the performances, I'm a big SNL fan. So seeing all these younger versions of the characters, I thought everyone did an exceptional job, especially Corey Michael Smith as Chevy Chase. I thought he embodied that perfectly, as well as the actor who played John Belushi. I thought he did a fantastic job. Gabriel LaBelle, great as Lorne Michaels. Cooper Hoffman, he's a nepo baby that's allowed. He
100%.
he channels his father very much in this movie, and it was very much appreciated. And yeah, just a movie that worked for me as a fan of the material to begin with. And I was sad that obviously Jason Reitman did not direct the Ghostbusters sequel that also came out this year, but
Mm-hmm.
I loved this movie so much that I'm happy we have that as opposed to his Ghostbusters sequel.
And that's fair. We'll take fair trade-offs here. We'll take
Yeah,
fair trade-offs here.
we'll take fair trade. If it had sucked, I would have been angry.
Absolutely. But yeah, as you know, I like that film as well. Moving on to my number 6 film. My number 6 film is The Wild Robot. This is one of the most pleasant surprise movies that I had all year. And it's not that I thought the movie was going to be bad. Like, I liked the trailer. I thought it was going to be a good movie, but was not prepared for how good the movie is. The movie is exceptional. And my only real complaint I have about the movie is I think the third act goes a little bit too long and kind of has more than one ending that I thought was a bit unnecessary. And this coming from someone who I've never read the book that it's based on, but the movie itself, immaculate storytelling, amazing vocal performances, especially Lupita Nyong'o, and the animation is beautiful. And I was very emotionally moved by the movie. And I immediately, because we're at that age now where a bunch of our friends are getting married and starting to have children, and all that stuff. When I watched the movie, I immediately texted all of my friends that have kids and was like, you have to watch this movie. Like, you have to watch it because it's very resonant in terms of like being a parent. And I'm like, your kid can watch it too. Both of you will love it. Like, you got to watch this movie. And it's again, it's one that was very surprising with how well done it was. And I hear they're probably going to do another one, and I'm highly looking forward to that. I thoroughly love the Wild Robot and was very moved by it.
Mhm. It did. Yeah, I also very much enjoyed it. It was sort of in my top 10 for quite a bit, and then Flow surpassed it from an animated standpoint. But I'm looking at like my letterboxd now, and I haven't really sorted a lot past the top 10, but I do
Hmm.
see it like hovering in that like next row, so in that
Yeah.
1 to 15 category. Uh, yeah, no, it was good. I think I just took more issue with the third act
Fair.
than most people. I don't know, just that's sort of where it lost me.
No, no, that's fair. That's completely fair. What's your number six?
My number 6 is Challengers.
Nice, nice, nice.
I thought that that was just a wildly entertaining movie. I think the direction from Luca Guadagnino
Guadagnino, however you pronounce it.
Guadagnino was fantastic. Zendaya gives a wonderful performance, as well as the two other leads in the movie, Josh O'Connor and
Oh my god, why did his name suddenly leave me as well? Hold on, I got you, Chief.
it is Mike Feist.
There you go.
The dynamic between Mike Feist and Josh O'Connor, I thought was very entertaining in the movie. This just sort of back and forth that they had, almost like a tennis match. And just sort of how they play off of Zendaya's character, and Zendaya really just sort of puppet mastering everyone in this, leading to a wonderful score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, the Nine Inch Nails people. And I will say this: I saw a lot of debate about the tennis ball scene where you go to the POV of the tennis ball. I thought it was fucking awesome, and I will not apologize for that. So it's just a movie that I found to be very entertaining. So doesn't crack my top five, but is sitting right there at six.
One, yes, the tennis ball scene was fucking awesome. I agree with you 100% completely. Two, will you see this movie on my list? You'll find out. You'll find out.
We'll see.
Uh, Coming in fifth place. Now we're in the top five, really getting
Ooh,
schmoving and grooving here. And my number five is Conclave. This was a movie that I watched it and I was like, wow, that was a really good film. And then I kept thinking about it and kept thinking about it and kept thinking about it. And then eventually I reached the inevitable conclusion of, you know what, that was a fucking great film. That was a really great film. And I haven't watched it again. I've only seen it one time, which is upsetting because I really want to watch this film again because how much I loved it the first time and how much thought I gave myself to it. And the movie is not only exceptionally well written, incredibly acted by everyone across the board. It has an interesting reveal at the end of the movie that I thought added to the depth of the Ray Fiennes character. The movie also has amazing cinematography, great sets. It's directed very well by Edward Berger, I think is how you pronounce it. And the movie also fucking moves. And you would think for a movie that's all about like sequestering and talking and blah, 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 like it's paced exceptionally, I think. And the way that everything, like I was so invested in what was going on, and I didn't think I would be. I didn't think I could get invested in the Gossip Girl Priest movie, but here there I was being invested, and like I'm not trying to like bring the movie down by calling it the Gossip Girl Priest movie. It's very much an accurate description, but it's so well done. Like it's like I wanted to know every ounce of drama that was going on in that place. Like again, I cannot wait to watch this film again. I thoroughly loved it.
It is, I won't say where, but it is coming up on my list shortly. My number five is one that was on your list, and that is Sing Sing, which was on your list. For all the reasons you said, I fully agree. I thought it was just a beautifully told story. I thought it was wonderfully acted by Coleman Domingo and Clarence Macklin, who I've seen sort of really creeping in there in the supporting actor race this year, but that's I feel like going to be one of the tighter races at this year's Oscars, but I would love to see him sneak in there. I would love to see Coleman Domingo nominated for lead, and just the story of the how art can sort of be rehabilitating in a sense, and just the impact that that program has had on for prisoners around the world in terms of reformation. I thought was just great to see, and just very well made movie. And it just was something that stuck with me emotionally.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said about Sing Sing. It's a phenomenal movie, as I said earlier. And this next movie, I might, again, you know how earlier I said film Twitter like Nosferatu, Deadpool, Wolverine? I've tried to give myself a reason to drop this movie lower, or to say like, oh, this movie is not as good as I remember, blah, 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 blah. Every time I rewatch it, I love it. Every time I think about it, I'm vindicated of, yes, this movie fucking rules. It deserves to be in the place that it's in, even though none of the people that we saw it with agrees with me.
I'm so scared.
My number 4 film of 2024 is Furiosa, a Mad Max
Oh,
saga.
Jesus Christ, I knew this.
Listen, I love this movie. Like, I can't not love it. I can't not love it. I tried to watch it and hate it. I can't. It's impossible for me. I thought that the journey that Furiosa goes on and the telling of that story was one that I wasn't really all that interested in when it was announced, but the movie had me every second of the way. I was just in it. I was loving it. You have the amazing George Miller direction, cinematography, the sound work. Anya Taylor-Joy crushes it. The relationships that she forms is amazing. Chris Hemsworth not being in the awards conversation hurts me a little bit because he's absolutely fantastic in the movie. And just that final confrontation with them that you see in the trailer when Chris Hemsworth says, but do you have it in you to make it epic? That scene is so fucking good. And I've watched it like 300 times. Like, even when I don't rewatch the full movie, I'll just go back and watch that confrontation. It's so good. And I just love it. I just love it. In comparison, which is The Thief of Joy, do I think it's better than Mad Max Fury Road? No, I don't. But it just right in my veins. It just hits me, and I accept it, and I love it. And I will not apologize. I love it. I love the film. And I'm putting it at number 4.
It is not in my top 10. But I will say the scene with the parachuting raiders was fantastic. I think my thing, going to your thing with the comparison, Thief of Joy, I think it's just a different movie than Fury Road. Stylistically, I think from like every fundamental standpoint, and I think I just had a hard time, I guess, getting over that hurdle still.
I got you.
Where I'm I want it to be the exact same style of what made Fury Road great. And I think there's nothing wrong with going a different direction than that. It was just something, I don't know, a mental block that I was just like, yeah, but why didn't he just do this again? Like, he had it,
Yeah, no, I got you. That's fair. What's in the top 4 for you? What's number 4?
My number 4 is the Gossip Priest movie, Conclave.
Hell yeah, brother. Keep it going.
I won't go too far into it. I agree with everything you said, from the direction, the acting. Who doesn't love gossip? I know workplace gossip. How many times has a friend come and been like, "Oh my God, hear about my family?" And you're like, "Oh, tell me more." But we're actually choosing the new priest, and I thought just the portrait of Ray Fiennes' character, this sort of troubled soul who doesn't really want to be put in the position, but that really makes him the best person for the position. It's a movie about the horrors of middle management.
Oh my God, yes.
It's exactly what it is. He's you get vaping priests. You have Isabella Rossellini, who gives a great supporting performance.
Yes, she was great.
And, just the time that's spent getting to know these individual contenders and giving them their own sort of arcs and just blending that all together, I thought was really well done. And the memes have been immaculate. So, that's always a good thing too.
Never a bad thing. I agree.
Never a bad thing.
I agree completely with you. Top 3.
Top 3. Here we go.
Here we go. My number 3 is a movie that you know that I love. I'm not sure if you know I loved it this much. And I've seen this movie 5 times.
Oh, Jesus.
I've seen this movie
Batman versus Superman.
Oh, God. I've seen this movie 5 times since it's come out. And that movie's Challengers. I love Challengers. It is my number 3 favorite movie of the year. I think it's being dramatically overlooked for awards contention. This movie had me so riveted for everything that you said, especially, the score, the performances, the fact that, Zendaya is a puppet master, but at the same time, she's also just the ball between two tennis rackets, and they're just hitting her back and forth, and just how everything is revealed. And I'm also just a sucker for awful people doing awful things. The movie, and the way that this toxic relationship with these three just plays out was so well written. I think the script is the biggest positive of the movie. And if it is going to get an Oscar nomination, although we have a bet going that Zendaya will get in, and I'm going to regret that because that conversation has completely died. But I hope that it gets a screenplay. I believe it's adapted, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to double check that. But whatever it is, I hope screenplay gets in there because, man, this script is so airtight. It's so good. And you're going to defend the camera going the POV of the tennis ball? Absolutely. I'm going to defend every motherfucking slow-mo shot. I ate that shit
those
up.
Two, honestly, those two.
I ate that shit up. I loved it. And in the final match, when they do slow-mo and they play the entire
Song
track,
again.
And then they go, oh, reset, and then it just starts. Dude, that shit was so good.
Honestly, that's
so good.
That might be top 5 movie moments of the year.
Dude,
for me,
it's incredible.
Okay, but do you guys know how much slow-mo is in that movie? We got sent the screenplay for part of the Critics Association we're part of. That thing's like 80 pages.
Yeah,
and it's roughly like a page a minute when it translates to film. That movie's like over 2 hours long.
Yeah, it's barely 90 pages long in the script.
There's so much slow-mo. I loved it.
Yeah, no, it's a great movie. It's a great movie.
Man.
I loved it. That's my number 3. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is A Real Pain.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that movie twice. Both times I was like, oh, I really liked this one, so I wanted to go see it again, really solidify. Maybe I was just coming off a high of enjoyment. This is starring Jesse Eisenberg. He wrote, directed, and starred in it, along with Kieran Culkin from Succession more recently. I think the script is fantastic. It blends the humor with the drama. The dynamic between the two cousins, I thought worked really well. The way they play off each other. Kieran Culkin gives probably one of my favorite performances this year. I think he is a shoo-in for a nomination for supporting, which may or may not be a little bit of category fraud because I do see them sort of as co-leads in this movie.
Fair.
But I think for a, what's it called, like sophomoric effort, would that be your second movie, sophomore?
Yep.
For a sophomoric debut, I didn't see Jesse Eisenberg's first one. I know it was sort of critically mixed, but I thought he did a wonderful job directing this. The performances are all great. Jesse Eisenberg gives a monologue about just sort of pain being unexceptional, and I thought it was beautifully handled, beautifully delivered. The cousins are on a Holocaust tour, so there's this sort of innate dread and drama that does come with that. And when they ultimately do reach that tour, I thought that he handled this sort of memorial to it beautifully. And I don't know, it's just a movie that stuck with me.
Yeah, listen.
And I dug it.
Listen, that's great. And if might be one that may or may not be in my top 25 on that Letterboxd link, but it's a great film, and it has my favorite movie line of the year. One of my favorite movie lines of the year. And it's when Kieran Culkin goes up to that girl walking by herself and says, "Hey, why are you walking by yourself? What are you, some kind of fucking loser?" That's one of the best movie lines I heard all year. It was excellent. And he's also excellent in the movie.
There's just so many great lines and just little jabs in it that just work so well.
Oh, yeah. 100%. And top 2, baby. Here we are. My number 2 is a movie called The Brutalist. This movie is 3.5 hours long. It has an intermission, and I would not change a goddamn frame of it. And, we talked about this in our review that we did. This is one of the 2 5 stars I gave out this year. It's an exceptional movie. And I've seen some recent criticism of the second half of the movie. I don't necessarily agree with it. I do think that the first half is better than the second half, but I still thought that the second half was very strong, and I thought that it ended in a strong way. That seems to not be the popular consensus, but I like the ending of the movie. Well, I will say, like, if you ask me which half is better, I think the first half is better, but I still like the second half a lot, and partially because that's when
Felicity Jones.
Thank you. That's when Felicity Jones comes into the movie, and she gives us an exceptional performance. Guy Pearce, also a huge looming presence in the movie, and he's absolutely going to get awards contention. Adrian Brody, fucking unbelievable in the movie. And the fact that this whole thing was made for $10 million is crazy. Brady Corbett, I think is the name of the director, did an amazing job. And, I'm not going to just rehash what we said in our review. You please go watch our review if you haven't seen it. This movie is exceptional. It's amazing. I can't wait. It's a 3.5-hour movie that I can't wait to watch again. And it's my number 2. I thought about even buying plane tickets to New York just to watch it in 70, but I'm like, no, don't do that. But, I'm hoping that it can play in 70 at some point near where we're at, because that would be nice to go see it in 70.
Really cool to see. It is not my number 2. I will say it is in my top 10. That's gonna spoil anything or not. I'll give my thoughts there in a minute. My number 2, I think maybe your number 1, since I haven't heard it yet. And my number 2 is Dune Part 2.
Interesting. Go on.
And that movie came back in March. I thought the first Dune movie was good. I enjoyed it. I think it was a little slow for my taste. It was a type of sci-fi that maybe, I don't know, just took me a minute to get into. But I was like, you know what? I did enjoy this enough to go back for a second. I'd go back for seconds on that, and we'll go from there. And man, I was just blown away by this movie. It is absolutely exceptional. The cinematography by Greg Fraser, I believe, shot it. Is fantastic. He's definitely becoming just a huge name in terms of the cinematography side of things. Hans Zimmer does a fantastic score. I think I slightly disagree with the Oscars ruling it out, but I guess that's based on their ruling. But I think that because it's one score, it's part 2 of a one. It's one movie. I think that Denis Villeneuve does a phenomenal job directing. He keeps getting better and better with every project that he puts out. And just all of the performances from Timothée Chalamet's lead, which honestly, I haven't seen the Bob Dylan movie. I'd almost run him for lead in this personally. I doubt anything in the Bob Dylan movie tops I am Paul Muad'Dib Atreides and that whole monologue scene. Zendaya gives a wonderful supporting performance, as well as Austin Butler, who I thought I was going to have a hard time getting over Elvis. But as soon as he showed up on screen, I was like, nope, that's not Elvis. That's Fade Rautha, I believe is the name.
Yep.
Javier Bardem gives I want to say hauntingly comedic performance, because it starts out really funny, and then just sort of as the movie develops and progresses, it becomes more and more horrifying. And the movie's just, I thought, fantastic from an effects standpoint, and directing, the effects, performance, just everything came together beautifully in that. And I'm actively excited for Dune Messiah whenever we get that.
I agree with everything you said so much that I'm going to go ahead and reveal that this is my number 1 movie of 2024 is Dune Part 2. It's so funny that we flipped ours. Dune Part 2 was one of those experiences where I watched it at a critic screening. And normally when you go to those, they're very they're not very reactionary or expressive, especially if it's no public is in the screening at all.
Unless we're there.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah. And, dude, being the only person freaking out during the Deadpool Wolverine screening was a little bit embarrassing, but I don't regret it.
I wasn't there for that one. I was not there for that.
But for Dune, that screening with just press, no public, was audible gasps, clapping at the end of the movie. Like it was like a holy fuck, like this is an experience. And seeing it again with the public audience and being able to relive that experience twice, I'm so grateful that I got to do that. Everything you said about the movie is correct. I've never seen the story told better of the warning of a Messiah figure and how that plays out in Paul Atreides throughout that story, through the Bene Gesserit, which when you watch Dune Part 1, if you have, because we've never read the book, I had no clue about this world. When you kind of see it all in the Part 1, you're like, okay, like I kind of see what's going on, but I wonder how that's all going to come together. That third act nailed it. I know we've been talking about third acts that don't quite nail it. Oh my God, they nailed this third act. And I remember getting chills in my body the first time I watched it, and Paul Atreides when they say, like, what's the next move? And he just says, lead them to paradise. Like, oh, I got
Mhm.
chills in my whole body when that happened. This was an incredible, visceral cinematic experience, and the 4K Blu-ray is killer. It's such a good one. And again, like you said, Greg Fraser, Denis Villeneuve absolutely crushed it. Again, I'm looking forward to Dune 3. But coming into the year, I would not have told you that this was going to be my number one movie, and it was.
Mhm.
It's just exceptional. I wonder what your number one is.
Mine is The Brutalist.
There you
Uh,
go.
we were fortunate enough to go to an early critic screening. Not a lot of people there for it.
Hmm.
The intermission was still a part of it, and I remember just walking out of part one during the intermission. We just sort of gave each other this look like, "Holy shit,
Yeah.
this is gonna be huge," especially if they like
Hmm.
stick the landing. I mean, the performances are exceptional. I think this is a movie that you're gonna see nominated in just about every category at the Oscars. Maybe even sweep. I don't know. I feel like the conversation's been a little mixed on it. Not from the a positive, negative standpoint. Just I feel like other movies might creep into different places. But
Hmm.
Guy Pearce gives one of the best supporting performances. Adrian Brody absolutely crushes the lead. Felicity Jones performance as well. She comes in the second half of the movie and she just sort of steals the movie at that point. I do agree the first half I think is better than the second half, but the second half is still fantastic.
Hmm.
I think it being a $10 million budget for 3.5 hour movie with intermission is insane. I was worried sort of like they put the intermission at a really good spot and it was sort of entering into an emotional point beat in the movie. And I was like, oh, this will be the determination of like if the movie has me or not. And the minute the 20-minute intermission was up and the scene started, I was crying. I was like, yep, they got me. Here we go.
Yep.
But it's sort of like it really is sort of two different movies at the end of I think that's where sort of maybe the disconnect is happening with, part 1 versus part 2 there, because I mean, if you look at something like, oh my god, why am I Full Metal Jacket, right?
Hmm.
That's 2 movies as well. You have your training, everyone's in boot camp, and then it becomes a full-on war movie. And while it's not that stark of a divide on this, I think it comes from this solo journey into this sort of family drama that I think is told beautifully from that standpoint. And it's just a movie that was a technical feat, in my opinion, just with the budgetary and what they were able to accomplish. I was blown away by it, and I think it's just going to be something that people are going to look back on for a long time as just like an important marker in cinema. Might be
Yeah.
a little too intense there on the praise, but I was truly blown away by the film.
And I remember when intermission hit, because I had to pee really bad.
Yeah.
Intermission hit. We walked down the stairs, and as soon as we walked into the lobby, I looked at you and I just said, "Holy fuck, this movie's good."
Yeah.
And you were like, "Yeah, yeah, it is." And then, yeah, like I agree. Again, it's my number two. I agree with everything that you just said. Before we go, let's just go ahead and have you go through 10 to 1, just in a row, and then I'll do the same, and then we'll get out of here.
All right, 10 to 1. We got Monkey Man, Flow, I Saw the TV Glow, Saturday Night, Challengers, Sing Sing Conclave, Real Pain, Dune Part 2, and The Brutalist.
And 10 to 1 for me, I have The Substance, Sing Sing, Saturday Night, My Old Ass, The Wild Robot, Conclave, Furiosa, Challengers, The Brutalist, and Dune Part 2. Ladies and gentlemen, those were our top 10 movies of 2024, but what were yours? I would love to see them
Yes.
in the comments down below, please. I love this discussion. I love the end of year list. We love doing this. Please be looking forward to the Movie Nights Roundtable coming back here in the next couple of weeks, and we're looking forward to a great 2025 with all of you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.